Tonight we're doing a brief show on Christian radicalism and how effective radical ministries can be. So John, start your story again with the rainbow, John 3:16 man, quick, and do a quick summary.
Yes, there was a celebrity or cult of celebrity. It was Roland Stewart, or also known as Rock and Rollin' Stewart, and he came up with the idea, the shtick of wearing a rainbow wig and carrying the sign John 3:16, which he would have on a collapsible rod he would put together, and he'd sneak inside the stadium with the rainbow wig concealed. Once inside, he would scope out the best angles behind home plate or in the end zone where the cameras would go during Super Bowl or base World Series or Golf Masters or any public event, or like a basketball game right where they shoot the baskets on free throws. And at the right moment, he would flash John 3:16 on a little stake that he would put together. And he traveled the world. This during the 80s. He was all over everywhere, and he became very famous. He was imitated and also mocked. The bottom line is, he ran out of money. He went through a divorce, and in the 90s, he started protesting the greed of churches by setting off stink bombs in public, protesting TBN, Trinity Broadcasting Network, the Crystal Cathedral with Robert Schuller, and any other religious organization like say a PTL ministry, where he felt they were greedy. The purpose of sting bomb is he felt that their ministry stank. He felt that the Lord thought their ministries stink, so he was just basically life impersonates art or imitates art. The bottom line is, he sometime towards the end of the 90s was trying to recruit a couple guys to help him, and they didn't want to, and he got violent with them in a hotel in, I think, Orange County, and they escaped, and he was, I guess, fighting them or trying to get them back, and trying to basically, he was holding them hostage, so they're like a kidnap situation. A maid in the hotel tried to stop or I don't know, call for help or whatever, and he went after her. She locked herself in like the I think one of the cleaning supply rooms. Bottom line, he got arrested and had 3 life sentences. And
are you kidding me?
3 lifetime sentences, not one, but 3, because the kidnapping, each person was a count, and so there was basically 2 guys plus the maid who locked herself in the room, plus all the other things associated. I don't know if he had a weapon or threatening, all that stuff. They just add up all the charges, and then when it came time to sentence him, they were going to have him plead to 12 years. Which means he would have been out around 2010. He declined because he wanted more publicity. He felt that the longer the case was out in public, he would get his message would get out, because it was all about message with him. And what happened, it backfired, because they sentenced him. They threw the book at him, so he got 3 lifetime sentences, and he was up for parole in 2010. Declined, 2012 declined, I think like 20, about every 3 or 4 years, he'd be up for parole, and they declined him, even as recent as 2020, 2022, and I think 2023 or 24.
Jeez.
And he said, and this is interesting, because you think about it, he didn't kill anyone. There's people that have murdered people, right, that have gotten out of prison, but because he didn't take the plea deal, he's in there for 3 lifetimes. And for basically, having, pranking with stink bombs, not something that would kill anyone, but just very annoying. And then also threatening to kidnap a couple of guys. And again, he didn't harm them. He didn't kill anyone. But kidnapping is major felony.
So could you tell me his full name again?
Yeah, it was, I believe, Roland Stewart, also known as Rock and Rollin' Stewart.
Okay.
and is also known as like the Rainbow Head Man or Rainbow Man.
It sounds like he had it good for a while. Like he was kind of like a popular icon.
He was a pop icon. He was fun. Christians loved him. And my dad and other Christians, would watch the football games and see if he made it, if it was a big game, like a playoff game or a Super Bowl, and to see every time you see him pop up in that John 3:16, because you never know what games he might make. But when you would see it, it was always one of those little things like, that's our guy. I mean, he's putting out the word, at a time when there was a lot of God is dead kind of, through the 70s and 80s, it started to resonate. And here he was counterculture to all that. But it also shows you just how far you can slip from grace, from being a good message, a goodwill ambassador to the planet, to the world. It became a pariah, he's something to mock or to make fun of.
Well, it sounds like he was thankful as long as he was in good standing and probably got some sponsors. But the minute he had a major trial in his life, he didn't really depend on God. He started lashing out.
Yeah, I think I think people just get they're very passionate. He was a zealot. And you can just easily cross the line. And that can happen easy if you're passionate and people are hating you. You pretty soon start to react, who would try to kidnap a person for anything?
It's funny you brought
God, like it's free will.
It's funny you brought that up because before I get into the OJ thing, I want to talk about his robbery in Vegas because they accused him of kidnapping, but really all he said is nobody can leave the room when they were in the middle of the robbery. But before I get to that, I want to just mention Fred Phelps of the Westboro. Our topic tonight is extreme radical Christians. Fred Phelps and his sons started the Westboro. He became associate pastor in 1931. I mean, right around the time it was started in Kansas, and he got more radical as time went on, but the Westboro Baptist Church, they do believe in 5-point Calvinism. Like there's only a certain amount of people that are destined to be saved. And he had a lot of radical doctrines, like limited atonement, unconditional election to the higher world, double predestination, which I don't have time to research. Well, anyways, Ernest and I interviewed him, and he was very biblically sound. He knew the remote verses from the Old and New Testament. He had a defense for everything he said, and basically when he went to that Senator John Edwards who ran for president once, when he went to the wife's funeral, they're basically saying that they're warning the world that they're going to hell. But on the other hand, they only believe that a certain amount of Christians were predestined to be saved. So it wasn't really a witnessing tool. It was just kind of like the United States is doomed, sort of. So I just wanted to bring that up quick. But in the OJ trial, okay, OJ had the good life. He made it to the top of the mountain as far as fame and talent. And then after he killed Nicole, he still had freedom. He got off and he moved to Florida. And then he started living a carnal lifestyle of debauchery, drugs, and multiple sex partners, some at the same time. Needless to say, he was living the good life, not really self-reflecting. And then when they planned that robbery, it was kind of on the cuff because this one guy tipped him off that some of his stuff was in Vegas. And he tapped a gun expert to go into the hotel room with him to try to get his stuff. Like, it wasn't a well-planned organization. They couldn't find the right floor. It was room 1231 on the first floor. Needless to say, they brought like 10 thugs with them. And anyways, OJ probably could have gotten off had the state of Nevada not been so hostile towards them. But when he told the room that you cannot leave and there were 2 weapons, that's kind of what sunk his ship.
Yeah, and the other thing that sunk his ship is he was used to the California treatment, and California's pretty lax on crimes, especially killing a blonde woman. But the issue there is in Vegas, in Nevada, gambling is their lifeblood, and so they take it to another level. In other words, that's their income stream. So they clamp down on that. And so if you have a gun and you're in a casino, you're in. So you better have a really good reason. You better have the right license and whatever else, and not be making any threats, because they will basically throw the book at you, and they'll hang you high. And that's what he ran into. He wasn't going to get a 7 or 8 black member jury from Compton or something like he did in his the murder case. So Nevada is all a bunch of white people, and they don't take kindly to strangers coming into town and shooting it up.
And it's a conservative. Nevada is a conservative state, even in the rural areas.
Right, and also with casinos, there are more cameras per square inch than any place, because they're always monitoring card counting, cheating, money laundering, dirty deals, prostitution, etc. So of all the places to go, you don't want to, like, if you're going to do a crime, you don't want to go into a casino hotel with a gun and make threats. It's the last. It's like going into a police station and waving a gun at someone. It's a really bad place to do it.
Yeah, and they got lost, looking for the floor. So they went up and down the elevator, like, to 4 different floors. Then they were finally told which room it was and where. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is, you know how he owed Ron Goldman's family and the Brown family $33 million? Well, they organized his 5 crimes into a sentence structure that it was like 33 consecutive sentences amounting to X amount of years that had some kind of symbolic figure. Like they did all this kind of weird symbolism to show him, like, your butt is cooked, you're screwed.
Right, and yet he still got off.
Well, he got 17 years, but he got off at 9 years. But 9 years is a long time to be in prison when you're in your late 50s to late 60s.
Yeah, I thought you're right. It felt like he was only in there for like 5 or 6 years, but 9 is a lot. But yet still, they should have kept him in there forever. I think that's my personal opinion. But that's because I'm weighing and adding weight to it from the other crime, and you can't do that, of course, when you're sentencing. But it was just he couldn't avoid not going to jail. He just couldn't avoid not doing stupid things. And I think he was just a little high on his own supply, doing drugs and feeling he's invincible.
Yeah, did you know that you know this, in the Bible it says, your sin will find you out, and do not despair.
Do not be mocked, right?
Yeah, God is not mocked. Whatever a man soweth, so shall he reap. So OJ did not meet his Waterloo until he was finally in that prison, and then he had to face himself. And I'm sure it was not an easy thing for him to do.
I think, though, to his death, he never was really repentant, certainly not to the public. And, of course, by the law, he was innocent, because if the jury acquits you, then legally he's innocent. But that doesn't mean he didn't do it. And to the best of what I can ascertain, all the facts are that his blood was all over the crime scene. He had the motive. He had a cut hand. He rehearsed the role of slashing someone's neck from behind for an upcoming movie as a frogman, which he was wearing he had the black clothes outfit and a glove and so forth. So it's pretty, in my book, there's more than a couple coincidences. And he also got back to the house, and Cato heard him come back at, within the time frame when the murder happened. And then he says that he got upset in the hotel in Chicago, slammed the glass, and cut his hand. How convenient.
That was the stupidest thing ever. And also, I want to mention in part 5 of the documentary, I might loan you my Netflix password so you can watch it. Part 5 in the documentary, it also showed how he slipped up on federal taxes, and that's why they plowed over Rockingham, because him and his agent, they hid all his valuable stuff for a couple of years in 5 different storages, so he wouldn't have to pony up to Fred Goldman. But anyways, a lot of his stuff got spread out, including one storage in the Bay Area. Well, then when they plowed over his house, like they flattened it, and the IRS took like some kind of property value, then it showed like a lot of things that happened in his life afterwards. So it was.
Yeah, he got away with a lot. As much as they caught him, he really, he mocked the law, because he was hiding stuff all over. He was golfing, and if he was just a smart crook, he could have enjoyed, and missed those 9 years in prison. But he's a triggerhead, and triggerheads will do that. They don't think through their actions; they just react, and whatever happens, they suffer that consequence. But he wasn't always that way. He was more of a model football player, and he was married to a black lady first and then divorced her. And I think when he went to Hollywood, and you start mixing the drugs, and I would probably say Nicole, I'm sure, egged him on. I know people in those kind of relationships, they bring out the worst of each other, and like to spite each other. I'm not saying she.
Well, the other thing is she was only 18 when she married him.
Yeah.
But I agree. He when he was at USC, he was a very mild-mannered person. People said he was very respectful. Him and Marguerite, his first wife, were, just a normal couple. He didn't cheat. But the thing about OJ is his biggest flaw was he was a people pleaser. So he always wanted to please his white friends, and he kind of put his friends and everybody else before his standards. Like he always had to charm people, he felt like, to get liked. And that's kind of sad.
Well, it happens when you grow up through the 60s, emerging. He had, as we've talked before, he had braces on his legs growing up. So you can imagine, I'm sure he was made fun of. And it was easy to say racial jokes at people in the 60s that were of minorities, whether it's Mexican, black, Chinese. It was more acceptable. If you just look at the celebrity roast, like Dean Martin would host these roasts, and you'd see Don Rickles, you'd see Red Fox, Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, and Milton Berle. You just go down the list, and they're all doing jokes about blacks and spooks and spics and different terms that today wouldn't even be done. Now, I kind of, to a certain degree, like that era in the sense that people weren't so sensitive. Not that I would do racial jokes, but just the fact that you could say something that was edgy and people could laugh, and now you can't do that. And it's like everyone is sensitive about every little thing.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you something happened to my sister when she told a black woman at work she supported Israel in the war, and something happened formally that I'll tell you about off air. But I wanted to say the one thing, there was one good moment in the documentary. After the murders and after white people rejected OJ, he started going to black churches to try to get more involved in the community. And he told a group of people in a church meeting that he's overlooked the black community and black causes, and that he would like to be re-educated and learn more about how he can support his community. So maybe that was just a show too, but at least before he moved to Florida, he had some I guess he had some self-reflection, about how his life went and how he didn't support the black community. Because the best thing about that documentary that I watched was there were three very even-minded Christian leaders in South Central, and they weren't inflammatory black people. They were level-headed, like recognizing that OJ committed a crime. But they said that he wasn't really ever part of the black community. But on the other hand, they didn't turn their back on him either. So anyway, I'll just have to give you the password later tonight because I really want you to watch at least a few episodes.
That would be interesting. It was an interesting case study that he was married to a black woman, had a child, but later on he marries, he kind of goes Hollywood. He's doing movies. So before, while I was playing football, it was an interesting thing when he got drafted. He was the best running back of all time, practically. I mean, the reputation come from USC and breaking all these records, and he was spectacular. But the problem was in the NFL, the worst teams would get the first choice. So he got drafted by the Buffalo Bills. So just imagine, he's growing up in San Francisco, which is a little chilly, but then you go down to Southern California. Hot weather, hot girls. He's the man on campus. He's the guy. He helped lead, I think, USC to beating Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. He gets drafted by the Buffalo Bills.
They cover all that in the documentary. Episode 2 is all about his USC days. He hated the climate in Buffalo. And by the way, he had 3 kids with Marguerite. 1 drowned in a pool. So, yeah. So, the baby drowned at Rockingham, actually.
Oh wow! Well, the crazy thing is that because I remember, I was 7 or 8 when they were playing. I think in 1967, so I was 8 years old. They're playing Ohio State. We're in Southern California visiting my uncle. We live in the Bay Area. So I already know him from the Bay Area. And then he goes to USC. We're going visiting my uncle in LA for like Christmas. And the Rose Bowl game was playing. And at that time of my life, in following sports, half of the time I would follow a team based on the colors of their uniforms or their mascot. Like the Trojans, and rather than the Bruins. The Bruins had that powder blue color. It was kind of wimpy to me, but I loved the SC colors and the Trojan horse and the Roman soldier and they were playing Ohio State, and OJ Simpson, he was such a charismatic, a dramatic football player. And then he gets drafted and by the Buffalo Bills, and it's like they're a losing team. And the main thing is they just didn't have a good line. So here he is, he's expected to be the hot shot running back, and he's getting hit and injured, and he's not the best running back as far as yard performance. So everyone's kind of pissed off, like, oh, you were such a hot shot in college, and here, it's not so easy in the pros. It's just they didn't have a decent line. And a couple years later,
it took him 3 years to get good.
Yeah, and it's like he was good, but for the team to get good and him not to get hurt, right? And also to learn the game. The point is, then he started just breaking all the records. He was just a crazy man on the field, athletically. And
he broke Jim Brown's 2000 rushing record.
Yeah, because for a while it was kind of the thought was maybe he wasn't that good. Maybe he'd be a bust. But once he got a decent line, he just was a superior athlete. And there's a handful of great running backs: James Brown, OJ Simpson, Herschel Walker, the guy for the Cowboys. It'll come to me. Emmitt Smith. There's about 10 great running backs, and OJ's either the best or the top 2 or 3. He's in that. Depends what you prefer in the running. Oh well, of course, Detroit Lions had Sanders. And I wanted to say Bernie Sanders just because of politics.
I know Deion Sanders, right?
No, it was Deion played for the Cowboys defensive back, but Barry Sanders.
Okay.
Barry, 5'9", but just the most unstoppable guy. And he would have set the all-time rushing record, but he decided at about 30 or 31 just to retire. And he a very humble guy, very God guy. So he wasn't concerned about being the all-time rushing leader. And it's kind of interesting because he walked away totally healthy. Like, he didn't play until he got injured. And I think there's a certain point, if you got the money and the fame and the success, and you can walk away healthy, you just do it, because you see other guys that get maimed. The one thing he wanted was to win. And year after year, Detroit kept telling him they would put together a team that he could win a Super Bowl with or compete. And they never did. They would always cut corners, and they'd get a couple guys in, but they wouldn't go all in.
Well, I'll Google him later. OJ left the Buffalo. He resigned from football about 2 years early because he was getting a lot of endorsement offers from Hertz and movie offers. So he kind of left a little early too.
Yeah, he did. He had a little left in the gas tank. And I think a lot of those guys, they just start looking around. And if you have alternate offers, you think about it. I could do commercials. I could do movies. I can walk, just go on a set, be famous worldwide. And what's the worst thing that can happen? I have a hangnail. I like bang my toe against a wall or something, doing a third take. It's compared to getting your guys like 300 pounds trying to kill you, trying to level you into the ground. That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, I watched a documentary called Quarterback, which featured Kirk Cousins and Patrick Mahomes, and I didn't really realize how sore they get after games, after being knocked over a bunch of times.
The one thing I tell people that tell me when I meet an athlete and they'll say, "Oh, I play basketball," or this or that. When they tell me they play football, I always tell them, so basically you run straight into a brick wall is what you do. And you think about it, because basketball, you're kind of running in the same direction a bit, and baseball, you're running around a diamond or out in the outfield, but you're not really. It's rare that you go head on with anyone. You pretty much, in fact, you try to avoid. They even say you can't block the plate. They try to minimize injuries, but football, you're running straight at someone, and they're running the opposite direction at you, and you're hitting. That's the most violent, unnatural thing to your body. You're just going to destroy yourself the longer you play if you get hit at the right angle. So I used to enjoy watching it. I liked quarterbacks and receivers and the artistry of that. But as I got older and I shattered my leg, I just didn't enjoy watching guys get smashed. And especially guys, in 3 years, they're hobbled and crippled, and that's the average football player career is 3 years, 3 to 4 years. The only ones who last longer usually are the quarterbacks, because they're not allowed to hit them, and they stand back there with the line trying to protect them, and they still get racked. But you're not allowed to tackle the quarterback if he falls to the ground. Compared to with running backs, you're running with the ball. They're trying to take your head off.
I have a fun fact.
Go for it.
Before OJ Simpson put on the gloves in the courtroom, his lawyers told him not to take his arthritis medicine for 2 weeks prior to that, because then it would even be harder for him to bend his fingers and put them in the glove.
I would imagine you get a little more swelling too. Of course, he had a glove inside of the glove because they didn't want to taint the evidence. So you can imagine, you just think if you have a pair of gloves that fit or are tight, and then you put a plastic baggie over them and try to slide it in there. And then, of course, if you look at the video, he's not keeping his hands together. He's spreading them out as wide as he can, which if you're trying to put on gloves and you spread your hand, it's hard. Usually you put your fingers together and you jam it straight ahead, and then you spread it out.
So anyways, I thought they showed all that too in the documentary, and I thought it was ridiculous they made him put latex gloves and then the other gloves on top of it.
It was ridiculous. It was almost comical. It was a circus, and I don't know.
Guess whose fault it was?
Well, wasn't it the prosecution?
The prosecution wanted it first, but Marcia Clark told Chris Darden just wait to see what they're gonna do, and Chris Darden got strong-headed about it, and he decided that nope, I'm gonna make him put them on, and Marcia said no. But he did it anyway, and it was humiliating.
Yeah, I think that in that case, you'd want to be dramatic, but I don't know. Were they told in advance that what the protocol would be for putting on the gloves? I mean, it's kind of
Gilgar said he told Chris Darden not to do it, the DA, and he didn't listen to Garcetti or Clark. And the prosecution was snickering to themselves because they already had a plan to make it go bad.
Now, was Darden having an affair with Marcia Clark, or was that just gossip?
It was just a brief of. It was during a court recess one weekend, like a long 3-day weekend, and they slept together in a hotel in the north, like where you grew up. Somewhere up there, and it was only a one-time thing.
And she never went back. But she went black.
I don't think she's with a black guy now, if that's your question.
Wow.
He was a sweet little guy. Like, he didn't have swagger. That's for sure.
He was kind of a white guy in a black body, basically.
He went to Southwestern University, which is really far. It was really close to where I worked at the American Red Cross on Wilshire and Rampart. So he went to law school like in that mid-Wilshire area.
Oh, it's a pretty messed up case because, to me, is my own opinion. I just think that in those kind of cases, the judge determines what goes into evidence and how they're supposed to view it. And he can build the case, or he can destroy it. And I just think that Ito blocks so many different things, and he allows so many different things that it destroyed the whole case.
They brought that up in the documentary too, exactly what you just said, that Ito should not have. They only let two parts about the Furman N-word in, but the 2 parts they let in were devastating. And then there were things they left out that were devastating, and it pretty much damaged the whole case, just like you said.
Yeah, I mean, they allowed. The problem is part of the problem was the National Enquirer was getting evidence before the prosecution was, and because they had the people if they had boots on the ground, they would basically publicize like, hey, if you know anything about the case or evidence, here's some money, call us up, and drop the line. So they were getting leads on the knife and on a few other pieces before the prosecution could find this stuff. And basically, Ito was throwing it out. He's like, you can't even admit it or discuss it. And so that determined, like, it doesn't matter what the facts are, it's what the judge allows.
Yeah, Harvey, remember 2 weeks ago on our regular broadcast, you said TMZ was created because of the OJ trial. They have the right name of TMZ. It was Harvey Levin, not Mark Levin.
Yes, and he basically, we've always had sensational tabloids and news publications, but it really launched the live video drama exploitation, sensationalism of a live courtroom, and the whole the theatrics. Because out of that was, of course, Kim Kardashian launched her reality show.
Well, that was like, okay, the case was in '94, and Ryan Seacrest didn't start the Kardashian thing till the early 2000s.
But what was interesting of note was the fact that OJ was the most popular, sensational court case, televised live. And the point is, while he was in jail, someone mentioned that about Kim Kardashian, how she was going to start a reality show. And he thought, well, that'd be a cool thing, which became the most popular, sensational reality show.
Well, you want to hear something funny? When OJ was planning the robbery in Vegas, he was in one of the dealer's rooms, and Kim Kardashian came on a television show as a guest, and she was talking about keeping up with the Kardashians. And this is in 2009. And OJ said, I know her. She's my goddaughter. And the dealer guy who had his memorabilia said, I have no idea what a Kardashian is. But then years later, he was talking about how that's how he found out about her.
Yes. And the juice was like, so you can imagine, it launched TMZ. It certainly launched sensational live court TV, and the whole media circus of the media controlling, like that storyline preempted everything and anything. People always were clamoring just to know what the latest thing with OJ. They could care less if we went to World War III or anything, abortion case or who's president. It was just like, is OJ innocent or guilty?
I just looked it up. Keeping Up with the Kardashians started October 14th, 2007. And I believe it was a year before OJ was sentenced.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, they kind of lined up together. And I guess I wonder when Kim's sex tape came out.
It came out at least 2 years before the show.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was the vehicle for her fame. People knew her as Paris Hilton's friend, but she really wasn't famous till the sex tape with Ray J, who was Brandy the singer's brother.
It's coming back to me now.
By the way, I'm fading, and we've been on the air 38 minutes, so I'm going to end this episode of Religious Radicals and the OJ Simpson case, and I will send you the link on YouTube.
Wow, keeping up with the Simpsons.
And I'll give you the password to my Netflix after I hang up tonight, okay?
Oh, good. Can we put it on the air?
No, people have to buy it. But I know you're going to love this series. I know you're in the middle of stuff. But when you have an hour later tonight, just tap into it, okay?
Nice, I will.
Okay, God bless you. Good night.
Bless you.
Bye-bye.
Boy.